Hi, my name is Sarah.
My name is Mujib.
And welcome to another episode of Let's Get To It. This is episode 25, and I don't think we have a title, but we're online. Welcome to our faces.
Absolutely. And it's funny because we're on a call, and so I like just reach over here to do something real quick on this, but then I remember I'm on camera, so I stop. We're gonna see all those funny little quirks.
We're gonna fumble and stumble our way through this, which is gonna make it all the more endearing. So yeah, this is our 25th episode, which is pretty cool, pretty amazing. And we're taking that leap. We're going. We're trying the video thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing to do on a 25th episode. Like to just it worked out that way. Just ironically, I didn't think about it in that context.
Yeah, we kind of have a habit of this sort of thing. Episodes lining up, and it's not super scripted that way. So, but I think we had talked about kind of exploring our last episode. If you guys didn't catch it, and you should, it was on the topic of excellence. And I think we're going to kind of talk about either some of those blockages or how to deal with roadblocks. Was that what you were thinking?
Yeah, and a little bit of because there was an aspect of that conversation that kind of danced around talking ourselves up, or as individuals, meeting an occasion and stepping up to it, and how that ability to desire to step up to the occasion or to be challenged with the thing that you're going to have to overcome that's going to equal an excellent instance, right? So you're not a champion unless you're in the championship sort of idea. So
right.
You have to decide that first you want to be able to be in that arena, but then also that you want to do all the things necessary to exist in that arena. And so in the idea of talking about up-talking ourselves, there's also the reality of how do you deal with the down talk or the negative self-talk. And definitely in this moment, it makes me also just think of things around the idea of negative self-image and the image that we have to hold as individuals that allow us to face challenges and overcome them in a pursuit of excellence.
I keep thinking about kind of sort of actual blockages and then perceived blockages, but then there's that relationship to the perceived is the real. And kind of how that plays out. If you think it's an obstacle, then it's going to be. And I know we've talked about a few times in other podcasts, sort of the power to sort of will something into being, both good and bad. How do we create our own obstacles? How do we overcome those? And then how do we deal with, very real obstacles that are out there in general? Right. And navigating that through the self-talk. I don't know anybody who hasn't had to deal with, that sort of negative self-talk on one of their shoulders. It's really hard.
There's an idea too that it's there. We have to be that scrupulous. I have to scrutinize my own situation enough to have that other side of my shoulder that's going to say well, can you really do it? Because I should be asking myself that question too. And I think that, and there's a dog barking for the UPS man.
Of course. Well, I just had a fighter jet or something fly overhead, so this is in real time.
Right.
We should tell our listeners. I guess I'm broadcasting from Burlington, Vermont, in the heart of the city.
From Marshfield, Vermont, in the heart of the forest, pretty much East Calais, up on the hills.
So we've got the heart of the forest sounds, because probably not a lot of people around. So when there is one, the dog goes off.
Right, exactly. And she'll do that until the UPS man drives away.
That's fine.
That's how that goes. But as far as, wow, I'm really just trying to gather my train of thought again after that. Yeah, that just took my train of thought right away. So.
Well, we're talking about sort of the negative self-talk that might just sort of live, kind of be that specter, with us at all times, or maybe not.
So I was discussing that instance yesterday, in the fact that like I personally need that voice that's gonna say like, well, am I capable of it? Because in the process of me going through the self-talk that allows me to arrive at the yes, I am capable of going through that, it hardens me, you know. It strengthens my resolve. Like, I've actually looked at it because I had that moment of doubt and I shored up that doubt, you know. It's like if you're climbing a rock or something like that and you suspect that the knot is tied wrong, you're better off looking at the knot too, not just like convincing yourself that you know how to tie knots right, you know what I mean?
Right.
If you've checked the knot 5 times and now you're on the rock wall and then you start wondering if the knot is tied right, well, then that I think is a little bit closer to what we're talking about. Like, how are you going to get up there if you don't trust that your knot is correct anymore, because somehow, some magical way, the knot that you checked 5 times before you got off the ground has changed and now isn't right, you know what I mean? So when I think about negative self-talk, especially in the instance of trying to achieve something, I think about it in that way. Like, you know, you've already done so much to get here, why wouldn't you be capable of doing the next thing too?
Right. Well, okay, I have a question for you then. Are you the type of person that is motivated by the act of someone saying, I don't think you can do that? Is that fuel for your fire, or no, you're not even worried about what someone else is saying? How do you deal with that, or people's, you know, perceptions, or what someone else might say to you?
Right. I don't know. Honestly, I think I habitually try to avoid that type of person in my life. You know, that like the idea that I would be sitting in proximity of somebody who would say that to me in response to my idea or my goal being expressed. I think I've kind of specifically tried to weed that out. But from myself, my own perspective, it is a motivator. I think that if you were to tell me right now that you didn't think I was capable of doing something that I told you I was planning on doing, it wouldn't dampen my ability to go for my thing, but it would definitely, like, you're raining on a parade. Like, you can't not change the mood when you do that. So for me, I don't know if that answers your question, if I'm motivated by it or not, but like, it's definitely not. It's not a good thing. Like, it wouldn't boost my mood in the moment if somebody had something like that to say to me.
Oh, sure, yeah, and I'm just, you know, I kind of think about like an underdog mentality, or you know, when you're underestimated. You know, if I think about it from a personal standpoint, sometimes like I dare you to underestimate me. Like, go for it, and that just sort of adds. I don't know. You know, I don't feel like I have to prove anything to anybody else, which is a good place to be in. But, you know, definitely I've been in situations where I've felt underestimated, or, you know, that maybe I don't have the knowledge base or the expertise. So, you know, sometimes I carry that with me a little bit, and I'm like, yeah, no, I can do that. And I'm about to show you. Yes. You know, not that I invite that criticism, but like, it's, you know, it's out there. Totally. And it's not always explicit. Sometimes it's really implicit in just a conversation, you know, especially in the business world. You know, you have conversations with different people, and when you're interacting with either people in real estate or people in finance, or you know, you can catch a whiff of when someone's kind of like a little skeptical, like about your abilities. And when I sense that skepticism, it's like, oh, well, I'm going to show you. So I use that skepticism usually, and I don't throw it in their face. I'm not super, I don't necessarily say that or even acknowledge that feeling or that sense of skepticism, but I'm like, well, you know, you'll be breathing the smoke of my burnt tires.
Eat my dust.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, I hear you.
So I was thinking about in sort of in that terms, if you've ever kind of felt like, all right, I'm kind of fueled by if there's any kind of sense of this underestimating my power and, you know, ability.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say in hindsight, yes, but not particularly. I mean, I've been in circles and had conversations where somebody will say some off-brand comment about like why this person's going to be capable of living the life that they want to live, and they're going to have an easier time than I would have, or something like that. And I don't, like, when I think back to those moments, I see how that kind of like washes over me in a way. I don't hold on to it and use that as a, like, okay, I'm going to show you, because I don't necessarily at that point value that person, like that avatar. I don't really value that person enough to like hold on to them as a person of motivation. You know what I mean? Like I'm already so motivated by the drive that pushes me. So my faith, my family, my desires, all the different things that I want to see in my life, like those things are already such a motivator for me that, you know, the avatar of person who might say something negative that would fuel my fire, I wouldn't give them any. They're not any fuel. Like, that's punk wood, you know. It doesn't work right. It's not the stuff to burn.
Well, I love that too. It actually reminds me of an earlier conversation that you and I had about, you know, the external validation or different points. And I think actually if you can not be too swayed or dissuaded by those external opinions, like who cares what that person, it's like you're on your grind no matter what, because if you're super reliant on the love and acceptance of others, then as soon as you don't have that, it's going to completely derail you.
Right.
So I totally appreciate that too. And I'm still in recovery for, like, you know, needing all those external validators. Right. But it's definitely something that still like sticks with me as someone that was that kind of like validation junkie for a long time, you know, like making sure approval seeking behavior and stuff like that. So it's definitely an awesome evolved place if you're just like, I love that, like this is just punk wood, like whatever, dude. And that's great. And the more you kind of, you know, can cultivate and curate that circle of you know, of just quality people in your life, again, that idea that, you know, excellence attracts excellence, and kind of, you know, the people that you surround yourself with, or you don't always have to agree with you. It's not about agreeing, but like, you know, just supportive in nature.
Totally. And constructive in whatever sort of criticism that they're going to have. Like, you know, I welcome somebody asking me how I think I'm going to be able to do what I'm going to do, or like to question, you know, what my tactics or my motives are, or what some of my benchmarks might be. Like, even if somebody's asking me in that sort of like condescending way to be like, well, how do you know when you're going to do the thing, you know? Even that, because it's constructive, like you're making me have to think. It's thought-provoking. Like that's welcome. That's cool. That's how I'm going to talk out that's how I'm going to come up with my dialogue around it, is by talking about it, you know? Like, when I first saw the visions of what I'm doing now, you know, like, definitely there was all of I butted up against folks that pointed out the things that I lacked in my ability to do this, right? So, you know, let's say 5 years ago, over that 5-year period, I've gathered certain personal resources, and now I'm able to operate in a certain way to execute my ideas that I might have had 5 years ago, as I built the resources to now operate and execute. You know, if somebody pointed out the fact that I lacked those resources then and asked me like how I'm going to get those things, then I welcome that always. You know, I definitely am not necessarily going to be too long around somebody who's going to tell me that I lack those resources and therefore I can't do what it is that I'm talking about, because again, that's like a really closed-minded person if you think that just because you don't have something in front of you now, you're not going to be able to get to that thing. Or if, you know, more likely in this situation, that person thinks that they have the thing in front of them that will allow them to get to the thing, and you don't have what they have, so how in the world are you going to do it, you know? But again, that's another short-sighted mentality, where somebody doesn't see how you might be able to do, because you don't have all the things that they have in their mind that lets them understand why they're capable of doing it. Of course, I'm capable of doing it. I have X, Y, and Z, and you don't have any of that. So how are you going to do it? Well, because I can do it without X, Y, and Z. And I have, apparently I have something that you don't have. Because I don't, you know what I mean? I don't, right? I don't have all the things that you do have, and I can still see a brighter day on the other side of the world, you know, but
right.
That's, again, that comes in with a certain level of optimism. I don't know how you just referred to it just a moment ago, but it made me think of like something that I saw earlier where somebody was talking about Dharma and just the idea of like, you know, hitting these points in life where you're so satisfied with the goal that you're going for. You know, it's not even like satisfied like with the thing that you have, but it's satisfied with the goal, right? So like want to do this thing and I'm happy to wake up to do that every day. You know, that puts, it kind of brings me up a notch to cloud 9, where I'm like, I'm kind of like above the rumors on the ground getting too loud, you know, I mean,
right,
that sort of idea, like the Jay-Z quote from the Kendrick Lamar song. But just that simple idea that's just like, I'm just too motivated by my own process to be demotivated by somebody else.
Well, I love that too. And the thing that's kind of coming up for me now are sort of the qualities of humility and curiosity. And having the humility to sort of, if someone not just critiques, but makes suggestions or questions, that, you know, to not get defensive. I know, you know, that's one thing I try to continuously work on, is not to get defensive if asked, you know, have you thought about this, or what are you going to do about this? It's like, okay, no, these are really good questions. I have to have the humility to sort of say, like, I don't have all the answers right now, but I have the confidence to know that, and the curiosity to learn and to acquire knowledge and experience. And I just think that those are really two elemental, what do I want to call it? Characteristics in a person that's really striving to evolve and for excellence and things like that. And if you don't have those two things, then it might get really tough if you have too much hubris or you know, too much ego involved. Like, I'm not going to listen to that. You know, having the humility to like know what you don't know, and the curiosity to want to learn. Right. You know,
it makes me think of like, you know, we think of negative self-talk or doubt or something as something that's like holding us back, but it makes me really wonder, are there instances where you can think that you talked yourself into a bad idea? You know, like your positive self-talk actually put you on a limb that wasn't as strong as you thought it might have been.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when other things are sort of blinding you, I think too, like I always think back to sort of having this internal compass and intuition about things, and then sometimes that intuition is blocked by a number of other things, and we might not take into account the advice of others. And I think of it most saliently and going into a couple of business arrangements with people that just really wasn't a great idea, and I was arrogant enough to think that, no, like I know what I'm doing. I didn't listen to the advice of others, and I guess in talking myself up so much that I was like, no, I got this. I know exactly what I'm doing, and you can't tell me otherwise, was just really detrimental. And of course, in hindsight, I'm like, all the red flags were there. All of the people that loved me and cared about me were like, yo, this is, what are you doing? Right. And I chose to shut them out, like really kind of had myself up here, like, no. So I think I've made mistakes when and I think that is in a way like, well, this is weird because in a way I thought really highly of myself, but I also thought really lowly of myself. And that's what allowed me to sort of step into a trap.
Right.
So I think there's this really I think it's more complex than that. So like I think more highly of myself now to know to listen. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Definitely.
In this weird way. But I just, I don't know, does something come to mind for you, an experience in that?
It's just something I think about all the time. Is like, you know, something my brother said to me once. It was just like, it's not what you don't know, it's what you think you know that you're wrong about. You know? And that's awesome. Like, I always think about that, you know, where it's like, you know, I might, you know, I've definitely, like, here's a good example, right? So just going like full steam with something and not having enough experience with it to understand what I'm looking for. So you've seen some of the old footage of me with the dreadlocks and the shaved face and a crowd of people lifting with me, and we're doing really slow motion stuff and everything. And there's some really awesome shots, but like I didn't know enough about the process of where I was supposed to be involved in that process to be able to direct the people who were perceiving themselves as the directors, because I ended up with hours of slow motion footage that I'm like, damn, bro, like you really were shooting the wrong thing the whole time. And had I had the foresight to be able to say, like, let me see everything that you're shooting. Like now I if I have somebody shooting for me, they have a monitor so that I can look at everything that they're shooting, so that I can say, like, yes, that's what I want, because I'm contracting this person to do this thing for me. Like, they're doing their job to the fullest. They're turning on the camera, they're pointing it where I tell them to point it. But if I didn't have the idea to where to tell them to point it, then they're going to point it wherever they think to point it. That sort of idea. So in that type of situation, me having so much confidence in the fact that, like, I'm so clearly talking to what this person is, and I'm so, like, wrapped up in the dream and the vision of, oh, it's happening, it's really coming to be, and not double checking, triple checking, quadruple checking this person. Just saying, like, oh, I'm really operating at this level that I dream to be operating at, so that everything must be the way that it is. So I'm going to give you this stack, and you're going to go back and you're going to come back with everything that I want. So, because how else could it go? Because this is so serendipitously happening in this way. Instead of stepping back and being like, I'm going to bank on the fact that you don't understand what I'm saying, and when you pull up the thing, I'm going to look at it, and through my experience, I'm going to look at it and be like, no, that's not what I mean. And then they're going to be like, oh, what do you mean? And I'm like, yeah, no, make the letters in the background pop. I don't need the whole thing. I just need this. And then they're going to be like, oh, great. And then they're give me beautiful photographs and videos and stuff like that.
This is like ding ding, all these alarm bells are going off for so many things right now, because I'm thinking, and again, over the course of a lot of things that we've talked about, communication, stepping into your power, knowing what you want.
Yeah.
So that sort of holy trinity.
Yeah.
I can think back in my own experience, actually, funnily enough, working with the same photographer, videographer, on a project that was probably 5 years apart. And the difference in those 5 years in the outcomes of the project. And this photographer, videographer is absolutely exceptional. And both products came out great. I mean, I have nothing ill to say about either of them, but it's really interesting because in the first project, I really didn't know what I wanted. I basically had hired someone to kind of shoot a promo video for my fitness business, but I didn't really have a full enough sense of like all of the details. I was kind of relying on, he was a sports photographer. I'm like, well, he'll know the things to shoot. And also even having just a little bit, the little power dynamic, he's male, I'm female, he's older, I'm a little bit younger. There's all kinds of things that kind of play into some of these things. Whether it wouldn't have been an issue for me to assert myself from his perspective, but like things that I was telling myself and just like not really fully owning or knowing what it was that I wanted. And so the creative process, like it took a really long time to shoot, and it actually took a really long time to end up editing because we kind of just got a lot and then we were trying to figure out after. Right. Like what we had. Fast forward 5 years, recently I rehired the same person because we did have a really great relationship, and I knew exactly what I wanted. I knew the soundtrack, I storyboarded everything, and it was just like straight fire. We got exactly the footage we wanted, and the editing process was like so fast. And even he was like, this is awesome, thank you for like telling me what you wanted, and it made his job a lot easier. Right. And we were both happy at the end of the day. So it's just really interesting. Like I feel like, but there were 5 years in between to kind of really even feel like for myself that I was in a place like, nope, this is what I want. And you know what? I hired this person. Like I'm paying this person. I can tell them what's my goal, what's my vision, what am I looking to get out of this?
Yes.
So yeah, it sounds like something similar.
Right. And in fact, like something I was reading the other day is like, that's what they need. Like that's what that person needs. They need the direction. They need, like, they don't they don't wake up with it on their mind. They didn't wake up with this imagery of what the years that went into this vision has given you, you know?
Right.
But yeah, and it just, what I was reading, it was in reference to a logo, like paying somebody to design a logo for you or something like that. And how, you know, like for instance, the first logo that I had developed for me, it was a cartoon, you know, it's like a cartoon kettlebell on the cartoon Vermont mountains, you know what I mean?
I'm totally thinking like Space Jam vibes.
Very much like Space Jam. I'm trying to think of like,
and I actually haven't seen your original logo, so I don't.
It was a little bit more like Mario on Nintendo 64, like when they first came out with like the 3-dimensional video games, you know, and it was like Mario clouds and could have been a mushroom in the distance on the hillside or something. Big like shiny kettlebell looked like a cannonball from Super Mario Brothers, you know, and years later somebody was like, man, I thought that was a wheel of cheese on it, you know, and I was like, what do you mean? They're like, that black thing is a kettlebell. I always thought that was a wheel of cheese. I always wondered, like, what does that have to do with it?
What's the connection?
And so, you know, the moral of the story is I paid somebody and you know, like, he had a great vision of what I was saying to him. You know, I want a kettlebell on the hills, and I want to show the kettlebell dimensions, and the hill, Vermont, it's North Country, that's how we're rocking. And he came back with something and was like, here you go. And I was so naive and so happy at the time. I was like, thanks, my logo, I got it.
I love it.
And I was like, exactly, I loved it. And shout out to the guy who made it. It's awesome. But at the same time, and I used it for years and years and years before I redesigned my logo. But, you know, it took me looking at that and just realizing that it wasn't what I actually had envisioned. And then finding somebody who could follow my vision, and then having that person give it to me in a way that then I could manipulate it and make it into what it was that I wanted to make it into. Did you remember any negative self-talk that went along with that first photo shoot? Like when you got that stuff and you were like, were you like, oh, I'm fucking such a bonehead or anything like that?
Yeah, well, you know, I remember just being really excited about the fact that we were doing a video. Like that felt like an accomplishment. Like, oh, okay, I'm finally in a position where like I'm a business that's gonna get a promo video kind of thing. But just definitely not really grasping the idea of like being in the driver's seat and directing something. Like, so not that I was actively talking myself out of it, but just really not knowing how to be in that position, like actively saying like, hey guys, this is what I want. And I think I was thinking about a lot of things just in terms of I don't know if this is because I'm an empath / people pleaser, but I sometimes have a really hard time of like, if I don't like something, figuring out how to communicate that. Like I can think of plenty of occasions where I've sort of accepted something that I actually didn't, like it didn't knock me out of the park and maybe it wasn't exactly what I wanted, and I just was like, oh, okay, like they did a good job and they tried really hard, so like great, this is awesome. And realizing that you're not doing anybody any favors, and when you do that, yourself or the person that presented you with something, whatever that is, right. And that it's okay to constructively critique. And I'm not the type of person that's gonna trash somebody's work and be like, this is, you know, I'm not that kind of leader or boss or person in general, but kind of learning that it's okay if you're not over the moon about something, or you're not pleased with how something came out, that you should be honest about that and then say, this is what I was thinking, or, you know, this is what I'm looking for. And maybe it's not a right fit, or it is, and you can collaborate and edit your way through something. I personally have struggled with that, like how to just like, it's okay to tell people that you don't like what they did. And like, you're not a jerk. That doesn't make you a jerk. I think I'm really fearful of someone being like, oh. Like, right. I don't know.
That's so interesting, because it's like, it's exactly what we're talking about. It's instances in which your self-talk kept you from what you actually wanted, you know, like from the excellence that you had envisioned for yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Same with what I'm talking about in my instance too. It's interesting to think about that, how, you know, our own, like, I think about self-image in that, not just self-talk, and that makes me really think about like habits of self, you know what I mean? Like, have I created such a habitual loop for myself that makes it so that, like, it's just like a negative self-image that I might have created so long ago that it's now just my story. It's not even like it's not even an instance of self-talk. It's actually just my self-dialogue is such that I'm learning that I'm not this person who I'm trying to grow myself into becoming. I think about that so much right now, just in, you know, because you and I talk about this as well often, is like, life is this continuous evolution. Like, I'm continuously building on the foundations that I have. Like, I'm able to reach to the next floor based on what I've created for myself underneath, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, that really does occur to me a lot, and I really do have to constantly look at myself in that situation. Is like, what's the story that I'm telling myself, and how is that going to allow me to reach the level of excellence? And it's both am I telling myself the negative story, or am I gassing myself up too much, you know?
Right.
And what am I not paying attention to that's going to come and bite me? And am I ready to start paying attention to it yet? Or am I still just going to acknowledge that I'm not paying attention to it? And, you know, hopefully by the time it bites me, I'm going to have enough fortitude and strength to be able to handle it, you know?
Yeah. And I think too, you know, we constantly talk about, you know, being comfortable where you are in the present moment, but also knowing where you want to go, and sort of representing also where you're going. So it's like, yes, this is, you know, this is who I am now, but then what do you kind of flirt with that kind of says this is where I'm going? And we've kind of talked about in little things, like maybe it's jewelry, maybe it's the clothing that you buy, or something you adorn yourself in. Like that's kind of the quickest thing to come to mind. But or something as nice as like, all right, I'm gonna rest on this cashmere blanket, and that's kind of just always my reminder of, you know, nice things that I want for myself. And that's, like, I think it's totally okay to have these sort of material things along the way if that's important to you. But also, something I mentioned to you in our last kettlebell session was this sort of appetite for risk, and like your dreams and your goals, and that something should kind of give you a little bit of pause. Like if it's a really big thing that you're going for, that's something like it's totally normal and fine for your gut to be like, to seize up a little bit and be like, wait, like, should I be doing this?
Right.
Because I mentioned this to you before, just that old adage, like if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough. Like they should kind of set you off a little bit and be like, whoa, like, because it does force you to, like you said, kind of check the knot 5 times.
Right.
To kind of do those things. But yeah, I sort of, you know, wrestle with that. Oh man, I want to do this, but shoo.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
It's going to take this much from me, but I can do it. I can do it. And so it's that constant balancing act of, balancing that self-talk. Like, oh, are you ready? Are you ready? Like, no, you got this. Like, are you sure?
Right. Totally.
But you don't have that on your resume yet. Well, I will. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I think that's what I meant in the very beginning when I was saying how that very last little combination that you said, you don't have that on your resume yet, but I will. You know, it's like it's that self-talk becomes in this instance it sounds a little bit more like a motivation, like just watch me do it. In another instance, it's also like the checklist, like you said, you know, just as you checking the knot, like, is it right? Is that, because also it's like we're asking questions based on our experience. I'm going to ask myself if the backup knot is right because I remember a time when I tied it and it was wrong. And so
Ouch.
I'm going to ask myself if it's right, because I know that I could mess up and tie it wrong. And I know that I'm more likely to do that if I think I know what I'm doing, you know? And that's just the reality. I mean, everybody who drives has that instance where you almost changed lanes and you didn't check your blind spot and somebody came flying right past you. You know, oh shit, you know, I got to remember again after however many years I've been driving, like I gotta remember again to check my blind spot every time, like, because and that's a perfect example for me in this sense, because it's like that only happens when my mind is somewhere else. I'm not actually thinking about driving. I'm not thinking about, like, I might be thinking about my destination, but I'm not thinking about the operation of the car, which is the checklist that tells me check this, check that, check that, check this, you know. And that's just that's the pitfall, you know. That's the total pitfall. It makes me think of shit like because we were talking in excellence, we were talking about like champions, you know. I think about like Steph Curry, you know, taking a shot and turning like he made it already and then missing. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, that's how you lose championships. You think you made that shit and you didn't. Or like the person who puts their hands up at the end and then the person comes flying past them. You know, because it's just that it's such a trap, you know, again, and it's self-talk. In those instances, it's not really negative self-talk. I'm thinking so much about where I'm trying to get that I'm excited. I'm happy about what I'm doing. I'm stoked. Maybe I'm even thinking about what led me to this point, and I'm still like patting myself on the back. Good one, you know. And then I switched lanes and didn't see that somebody was going 90 miles per hour and clipped me, you know. So.
Oh, that's just resonating so hard with me right now, because you've gotta be able to be both in the moment and look where you're going, know where you're going, like know what you want and where you're going, kind of have the past in mind. I mean, I think sometimes we can get really caught up in saying like everything has to be about in the moment, like that's like the all, you know, the super sacred. But and being in the moment is important, like that, like literally doing your operational check, like, okay, what's happening right now, but having an eye on the future of where you're going, like knowing where you came from. I think those are also so important. Like it's all, there's this harmony, or there's this synergy between all those things that it's just really, really important. I was listening to I hate the fact that I can't remember this astrologer's name, but he was kind of talking about some of the pitfalls of just like idolizing the be in the moment and only in the moment thinking, because we have to, some ego has to be involved, like to achieve, to be curious, to go after the things that you want, and that we shouldn't always just demonize the ego in such a way that like, oh, just living in the moment is like the capstone, is like the end all be all. And I just appreciate that, because I think just having this sort of global awareness of where you're going, where you've been, and like what you are doing right now, so you don't like hurt anybody else, hurt yourself, is really important. But you've got to have all those components. Right.
It makes me think of the phrase like the past informs the present and the present informs the future. You know? It's like, because I mean, again, it's like there is the live in the present moment, but there is also like in real time relationship, what is this present moment going to mean for the future? You know, like what is the next thing that I say going to mean for the next couple of years? Because I might say the wrong thing in the moment and it changes the trajectory of everything that I'm working on, you know. Shit, we were talking about the fucking Zoom guys, you know what I mean? And the people that get like busted on Zoom doing bunk stuff, you know? And it's like, here's your whole career gone for this moment of enjoyment that you thought you were having, sort of idea. So like we have to ask ourselves like, what is what I'm doing right now going to do for me with what it is that I'm trying to do? Because again, if I'm the simplest is that if I'm trying to be this type of person and I'm doing things that aren't conducive with being that type of person, then I have to be able to see that in the moment to change it for the future, you know,
Right.
because I have a goal. I have this reason for being, right? This purpose in life or whatever that's beyond just being satisfied right now, you know. I think that there's a lot of satisfaction for me. Largely, what it really, just to round out my perspective a little bit more, it makes me think of the philosophies around like the infinite moment. Like the moment is constant. Because the moment is new now. It's new now. It's new now. It's new. Like it's always new. Every moment is just as much as your heart beats and my heart beats and I can snap my fingers. It's a brand new thing. But it's the brand new thing that it was 35 years ago, and it's the brand new thing that it's going to be 35 years from now, and it's all encompassing. You know, it's not, because even if I just cease to exist right now, that's not my, somebody's got to come into this room and find me sitting here ceasing to exist, you know, and that's going to affect their moment going forward. You know what I mean? It's not just, nothing is an isolated instance. There's no, you know, there's the cause and effect sort of idea. So you have to, again, there is the necessity to think about all things, but it's like you said, there does have to be also the mind on the operational tasks, you know. But again, that, I feel like that is tied to drive and desire and not necessarily just a goal, but like the desire to progress, however it is that you're going to define that word as an individual. But you know, if I'm trying to get to Burlington, you know, it behooves me to be thinking about what it is that I'm going to say when I get there, because when I get there, I'm going to have a conversation with somebody, you know. In the trainer's instance, like if I'm going to see somebody, I got to be thinking about what we did the last time as well. So I have to, it's such an interesting reality. Yeah. Because it makes me think of also like, because again, if we're talking about self-talk, we're talking about how that can like derail us from what we're doing. It's in the absence of self-talk that we're also talking about how it can derail us. You know, like if I'm not scrutinizing myself enough to ask myself if I'm delivering the very thing that you're looking for, then maybe I'm going to get off course. Maybe I'm going to deviate and I'm not going to be delivering that thing anymore. And, you know, if I'm not taking the time to ask myself if I'm doing a good job, maybe I'm going to stop doing a good job.
That's some scary shit for people. That's some scary shit for people. That's the whole, like, can you look yourself in the mirror? Can you look yourself in the eye and actually ask yourself those questions and then answer them honestly? my brain's like already 3 steps ahead on that one. But yeah, and kind of a rule of thumb that we have going on in our household here is just sort of the power of your thoughts and then the power of your affirmations or the things that you say. Like, I think just the other day I said something like, oh, I'm so dumb. And my boyfriend was actually quick to say, he's like, well, don't say that. Don't literally don't say that, because if you say that, like how we can sort of talk our way into reality, like you can literally shape like that we all have this incredible power to shape reality, in our mind, in our, you know, our relationships, in the universe. And the power of your thoughts it's really incredible. And what these like little things, almost like these like microaggressions against ourselves, like things that we can say to ourselves that just can completely derail you, right? And I just think of a lot of it can happen in our own, I think of it in particular like negative self-body talk, and appearance. That's sort of like something that's close to my heart and experience. You know, if we're saying to ourselves like, I'm too this, I'm too that, or I'm too, you know, whatever, that's really destructive, or about our own intellect or our capability. It's just, you know, if you, it's like the food we eat. If you're feasting on junk food all the time, you know, like your gut is junk. Like it does, and you don't feel good, and your poo is not healthy. Let's just be honest.
Right. I mean,
right. And so our thoughts are like, do we want to be feeding ourselves junk thoughts, or we want to be feeding ourselves positive thoughts, and not in a way that like we have this inflated ego and this arrogance, like I'm the shit, nobody can tell me other, you know. I think there's a line like to speak proudly and boldly and unapologetically about yourself without, like to a harming extent.
Right,
but it's really important, those thoughts and then the things that we say out loud. Like I said to a good friend who was going for a job interview, and she was kind of talking it like, I'm not going to get it though. And my response might have been harsh, and I was like, well, if you don't think you're going to get it, you're not going to get it. And I'm like, that might be a little harsh thing to say, but I'm like, no, I mean, if I just truly believe that, like, if you've got to put yourself in the running,
right,
and you know what, if you don't get it, you don't get it. Let's move on to the next, or can we learn a lesson from that, or whatever. But I just think mindset is important. The thoughts and then the things that we actually say out loud make an actual difference in outcomes.
Totally.
I really believe that.
100%. Also because you give it, like, because how's the best way for me to say this? If we're not taking the time to change the way that we say things, then how many times are we just reiterating the thing that we're saying, right? So, like, if it's my inclination to doubt myself, or to say that I'm dumb, or to see myself as something less than what I am actually, right? Mm-hmm. If I'm not taking the time to check that and see myself for how I actually am, or see myself as whatever level of intelligence that I have, and try to manipulate it however I need to, then I'm just filling my mind constantly with that junk, like you said, like mm-hmm. if I'm only ever seeing myself as the diminished version of myself, and I don't stop that, then I'm just putting that many more tally in that category of, like, I'm not shit, mm-hmm. and I'm gonna keep on proving to myself I'm not shit, because no matter what happens in this situation, I'm gonna look at it as that's another example of my self-talk, mm-hmm. right? So, like, I think I love myself, right? I have a lot of self-love, like I do. Yes! I love myself in that way, right?
Yes.
And it's a conscious thing. It's like, it took me looking at myself honestly in the mirror, right? After probably years of not looking at myself in mirrors, because I wasn't the type of person who could look at myself and be like, yeah, I'm excited about everything that you're doing. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And not to say that, like, there's not still growth that I'm going through, right? I'm not the list of things is changed, like my spectrum of how many things that I'm working on might be different or mm-hmm. have evolved, but there's still stuff to work on, definitely. I mean, thank mm-hmm. God, that's evolution of a human being, trying to actually interact with my relationships and community and surroundings, but at the same time, like, I'm not self-deprecating, mm-hmm. like, I look up for myself. I write myself a sweet letter, or buy myself something nice, just the same way as I expect somebody else to do it for me, or that I would do for somebody else. Like, I have the same level of love that, like, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I have I have a similar level of love for myself than I would for a friend of mine, because I do a lot for myself. You know what I mean? I just made myself lunch, this delicious cup of tea. I set up this awesome conversation with this great person in my life. Like, I'm getting weepy. But it's the truth, So with that said, with all of that kind of, like, self-hype, is the reality that, like, that drives my self-talk. So when I look at a situation, it's going to show me, like, the example of why what I'm telling myself is the truth. So, like, mm-hmm. when we talk about, like, I can do it, I can succeed, I can make it, I can reach that goal, I can do that thing that I'm trying to do, and then the whole floor falls out from underneath us, right? Mm-hmm. Well, that's and then somebody else is like, oh man, it's the worst thing in the world could have happened to you, but I'm like, no, actually, like, it's crazy to sound, but it actually turned out to be great. That actually turned out to be the driving force that gave me the last little bit of push that I needed to go. We started off this podcast talking about our, like, the episode 1 of Let's Get to It. And if you haven't listened to it, go listen to it. Yeah. But we started off talking about...
And all the other ones.
Right, and all the other 24. But we started out talking about our trajectories and how, like, the thing that could have seemed like the worst idea to make to somebody else, or this thing that might have seemed like the this is the bottom of the barrel, actually proved to be the jump off point for everything else that happened after that. That was infinitely better. Like,
right.
Oh my God, it's so... But again, that goes back into self-talk. Like, I'm not blowing smoke up my own ass. Like, I know that me flipping a car over in a wintertime in 2014 changed my perspective on life, which led to me going to a party that I might not have gone to, which led to me meeting my wife, which led to me treating people different than I was used to treating people, which led to my beautiful fucking life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I mean it just like that. Like, this is cool. Like, if I could turn this camera around and you could see out of the window without it like blowing out the shot, I would do that. And it's wonderful. And, you know, it took sacrifice, and it took hitting rock bottom, and it took pivoting from that, and it took recommitting, and it, you know, and all of those different things that come with that opportunity to talk ourselves out of a reality versus into a reality.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Talk
yourself into a reality and not out of a reality. Right, Did I get that right?
Yeah, totally.
Write that down. That's today's quote.
Right.
Well, I was thinking too, how beautiful something you said when you first began, and something actually my therapist gave me a homework assignment. This is a long time ago, and also like normalizing therapy and people having relationships with, you know, therapists, which is a relationship with yourself, and working on that. But my assignment that I was given was to write myself a love letter. And I was kind of like, what? when I was first given this assignment, and for a moment, it was at a time where, I was a little ashamed, like it was hard for me to write, but it's really good homework for anyone out there. Like, literally sit down and don't wait for someone else to write you a love letter. Write yourself a love letter. And I love that you brought up treating yourself like you would treat that person in your life that's super meaningful to you, whether it's a friend or a partner or family member. Like, you deserve to be treated that well by you.
Right.
So I really love and cherish that idea. And it's, everybody's homework. If you haven't already done so, like, literally, like, just sit down and write yourself an ode to yourself, a love letter to yourself, and just kind of see what comes up, and notice, was it really hard? Was it really easy? Somewhere in between, because we are all on our own journey of acceptance and forgiveness and all of it, and you're your own greatest project, and like we've talked about it before so much, like investing in yourself, believing in yourself, and how important that truly is. And when you do those things, like, you have a glow and an energy that attracts others as well, right? Like, I believe in Mujib. Mujib really believes in Mujib. I believe in Mujib. It really is it's a contagious thing. So, it's really, but it's got to be genuine, right? Because I think also, like, the fake shit is pretty easy to spot too.
Right. Absolutely. And with that, sometimes it starts with inserting the imagination for oneself, as somebody who had to work on these things, and, like, it goes back to the envisioning idea of, like, sitting down and, like, picturing myself in the place that I want to be, or in the position that I want to be in, or in the mirror with the things that I have, I've talked about my tattoos before, and, like, I didn't have them at first, there was a time when I didn't have them on my body, or when they were just open circles and they weren't filled in, and I'd look at myself in the mirror and I would see this person with his tattoos filled in, you know what I mean? And it's not just because I wanted ink in my tattoos, but it's because of what I knew that the version of myself that achieved that would have also achieved in the process of getting that. So again, it just takes that, like, that sometimes it does take that deception of the image, of the personal image, you know, because if we're seeing ourselves as being less, then sometimes I have to deceive myself by, I'll put quotes on the deceive myself, right? Because it's not actually, all I'm doing is looking at the actual aspects that are my good, genuine aspects. I'm looking at the truth of myself. I'm saying like, well, if I'm such a piece of shit, then how does X, Y, and Z keep happening to me? Or why does this person, you know, as a business owner, it's like, especially a small business owner, it's like, I'm going to reach out to my clients. I'm going to ask them, like, what is it about me that you like so much? If I can't see it in myself, you know, and then they're going to be like, well, you know, I like your demeanor. Like, I like how positive you are, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, oh, damn, you know, I like how positive I am too, actually, you know? And sometimes it takes that little bit of like, actually, no voice in my head that's telling me that I'm not capable of getting this. Like, I've gotten something like it. Actually, you know what? I already have it in the future, so I'm just going to focus on that, you know? Like, those sorts of, like, self-images that we can throw in. And I'm getting a little bit more, I'm kind of talking around the idea of tricking the subconscious mind into believing something that is only true in the future. But that goes into what you were talking about, which is shaping our world. It's taking the time to envision ourselves in the position that we want to be in so hard that our subconscious mind starts to see that as what's actually going on, is my road to that, you know?
I think you're hitting on something really important, though, for folks that may be in a place where they're like, oh, well, I'm not quite there yet. I'm still working on that. Or I want to believe in myself, but I'm just not there. I feel like what you just did was to give folks permission. Like, it doesn't all have to come from inside you. And I don't think anybody expects that it will, because that's really difficult. And so I think part of it's really important to surround yourself with people. It can come from a partner, you know, even and be simple as asking, like, you know, why are you attracted to me, or what do you see in me? Because I figured out some things about myself through the eyes of my partner and what he loves about me. And I'm like, oh, you like that thing about me that, like, I never liked, and it helped me cultivate a likability or even love for something that I normally used to either try to hide or, you know, ignore or something. So using, whether it's friends or, like you said, clients, you know, it's perfectly acceptable. And I would say, like, do this, you know, ask other people, and you might find a doorway to love something about yourself that maybe you didn't like. You're like, oh, okay, you know, maybe these people do really like my laugh. I don't have to cover it up. I don't have to hide it. You know, or, you know, what are those things? So I would encourage folks to do that, because I don't think we can be expected to just, like, find it all on our own all the time. It's not going to happen.
No, it goes back to what you were saying not too long ago in a couple episodes back, where it's like, I only get one dimension of myself. You know, I can only see myself from one dimension. I can't see all the different dimensions of my personality. I can't see how that thing that I didn't realize about myself was really the number one driving force of this relationship over here, or you know, that way that I am. I am that way all the time, but that is the thing for this person over here that they're like, wow, that shit about you is really what gets me, you know? Yeah. Because also it's like sometimes you don't have to be willing to hear the thing too, like the thing that you didn't want to hear as well, you know? Like, I as a man who was, like, raised in misogyny and everything like that, like anybody else who kind of came up in a world of, like, men fighting men and growing up as boys fighting boys to be men fighting men, have had to hear times when my toxicity has come out, and somebody's like, actually, you know, you didn't let me get a word in. And I'm like, well, you didn't assert yourself. And they're like, well, I shouldn't have to assert myself to have you listen to me, you know? It's like, oh shit, well, damn, I come from a place where you do have to assert yourself to have somebody listen to you. Like, well, I don't. Aren't we meeting in the middle? Okay, well, shit. Well, thank you for telling me those times when I'm stepping on your toes, because I'm used to everybody stepping on everybody's toes over here, you know? And we're trying to evolve and grow together right now. So again, yeah. But you can't have that without the conversation.
A nod to our communication episode for those that haven't listened to it yet, because we do talk about that.
Yeah.
You know? and that's a constant process. Oh man, I think we're probably about running out of time here.
Yeah, we're there.
We're there. Somehow awesome. I knew that. This has been really fun. I think we're gonna do this again.
Yeah, like it like this.
In this format, we're gonna give you guys a little visual representation, a little auditory representation, for those that are interested. And please, like, hit us up. Let us know. We'd love to hear from folks. We'd love to maybe expand and start to have people on the show. Can we call it are we a show? We're a show.
Yeah, we're officially a show with 25 episodes.
We're a thing. And always, this is really fun and a really fun new medium for us to take this to. It's been awesome.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've enjoyed it the whole time.
Great. This is really cool. So we want to thank you guys. Remember your homework assignment. You're going to write that love letter to yourself, okay? And you're also going to allow other folks to kind of shine some light on what they love about you so much, and that's going to be a wonderful gift.
Yes.
So
I love it.
Yeah. I hope everybody takes great care. And my name is Sarah.
My name is Mujib.
And peace out.